So thank you for joining us today. Again, my name is Tanya May, and I'm the Director of Special Education at the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, or OSPI. And we're so happy to have you joining us today for our joint webinar series with the AESD, our inclusive IEPs for our new world, technology enhanced environments and assistive technology. We have two more webinars in our series for this whole school year. In April, we're going to be going over a review of the changes that we've been making to the Special Education Washington Administrative Code, our rules for the provision of special education. Scott Robb, our Family and Community Liaison, is going to join me for that. And then in May, we're going to be focusing on identifying and serving students with disabilities who are learning English. So we hope that you'll join us for those. The registration links are there for both. And all of the links are available in the slides that I'll be posting throughout the session in our chat. So this webinar series has been focused on fostering collaboration among our special educators, our general education partners, and our system leaders, all in support of inclusionary practices. We're also focusing on highlighting effective strategies for inclusive instruction across our school reopening models. And really the purpose is just for all of us to have a chance to share strategies, innovations, and resources. So for today, we have the chat active. I don't believe we have the Q&A, so we'll just go ahead and skip this one. So you can type your questions in as we go today in the chat. And while Rebecca and the team are presenting, I'll be doing my best to answer your questions along the way. So we'll introduce our presenters here. You know my name now, and so I'll turn it over to Rebecca, and then she can hand it off to our next partner.
Hi, thank you, Tanya. My name is Rebecca Lynn, and I am with OSPI as a Program Improvement Supervisor. And Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Kinsella. I'm a speech language pathologist, and I work for the Special Education Technology Center. We're located in Ellensburg at Central Washington University, and we're one of the OSPI's 6 state needs projects, providing support to schools, teams, families with their schools, assistive technology through consultation, lending library, and trainings.
And then Rose.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rose Roscoe, and I'm an occupational therapist and assistive technology specialist, working both for Special Ed Tech Center and for Bellevue School District. So I have 2 hats on, and I'm excited to share with you today.
Thank you. All right, we've got, this is our agenda. We're going to talk today about technology and technology enhanced classrooms for all learners, but also integrated technology, assistive technology and augmentative and alternative communication. And then we have some wonderful voices from the field, videos of and testimonials from people in the community about the integration of technology. Towards the end, we'll have a Q&A where you'll have an opportunity to ask questions from the presenters or from the people that are demonstrating something in the field will also be present, so they could answer questions as well. So we're going to start today by just looking, exploring our vision again for inclusion and talking about how technology fits in with this. The definition, inclusion means that all students, including students with disabilities, experience meaningful participation in general education settings, both academically and socially. And inclusionary practices are actions that educators, schools, and districts take to create opportunities for students with diverse abilities to learn and be a part of the general curriculum, classroom, and school community. And technology is an inclusionary practice that facilitates access to learning and participation for all students, including students with disabilities. So we want to start with a little activity here. So essential to inclusion is recognizing and reducing barriers to learning, and recognizing barriers requires this ongoing examination of the strengths and needs of students in relation to learning goals. So part of this process, or some guiding questions for this, could be exploring what is the goal of this assignment, and sometimes that also includes what it's not. And then what's hard for the student in relation to the goal. And then how can the assignment be made more accessible? And this question in particular is really where collaboration can be helpful. So for this little activity, I want you to use your chat. And we've got a 3rd grade assignment, is to independently read a short story in a textbook and write answers to comprehension questions. Here's AJ. He reads slowly and has difficulty producing legible handwritten work. He gets frustrated when writing words and sentences and controlling the size and spacing of letters on lined paper. So using your chat, think for a minute about what are the goals of this assignment? What's the big idea? And in that process, you can eliminate what it's not, but just focus on what is the goal? What's the purpose? What do we want? What is the student demonstrating? So I'm just going to give you a minute to include some things in the chat. Great, reading comprehension skills. Thank you. And now let's think about what's hard for this student. What are the barriers in relation to this learning goal? Legible writing, written expression, time. Excellent, handwriting. And now let's look at 3. How can the assignment be made more accessible? What are your ideas? Good, read to him. Oral response, use the computer voice to text. Excellent. Verbal answers. Great. Oral response. Excellent. Thank you so much. So I'm going to share some, and many of you had the same ideas. I'm looking at, where is my PowerPoint? There it goes. Okay. So the, yes, the story and the questions can be scanned and uploaded to the student's tablet or read aloud by a peer or a para. The student can listen to the story live and or using a built-in text-to-speech feature. If uploaded, the student can stop, start, and repeat sections as often as he needs to. And then the student can dictate answers to the partner or speech to text, save it, print it, email it to the teacher. So these are possible. These we're able to, and you all did a fantastic job of identifying what the barriers are and what they're when in relation to the expectations. So the expectation is not to write, and really reading is not a part of what's expected. It's really the comprehension questions. So fantastic job. So looking at the next slide, this is learning challenges. So recognizing and reducing barriers is important. Learning challenges have traditionally been viewed as a problem with the learner rather than with the instruction or the environment. So sometimes barriers to learning are related to the learning expectations of the goal, and sometimes the barriers exist separate from the learning goals. in the physical environment, in the media format, in the technology, that maybe they're systemic, maybe there's a perception that's a barrier, a perception on the behalf of adults or even the students. And so thinking about, so recognizing that learning and overall success in school depends on the interaction between the environment, the educator, and the unique background and the needs and experiences of each student. So these are places to look for barriers to not just learning, but participation in general education curriculum and classrooms. And this slide, I just want to emphasize and review sort of the difference between equality, equity, and access and how this relates to technology. So reducing barriers to learning and participation is a step toward increasing equitable access to learning. In this diagram, so equality is about equal rights and opportunities for all students. So, but equality can also mean the same expectations and resources regardless of different needs. So equity works in tandem with equality. Equity ensures that we can give students what they need and that there are different levels or types of support so they can take advantage of those opportunities and accomplish goals. And then access is that removal of the structural, philosophical, and pedagogical barriers to allow equal and equitable opportunities. Now, how this relates to technology. So equal access, equality would mean that all students have the tools and the applications necessary to enhance learning and participation. And students with disabilities have a right to technology through IDEA. But access to technology does not necessarily mean, it is access to information, but so having the information that's available on the internet through technology is another important aspect. And together they contribute to learning. So you can have access to the device and you can have access to the internet, but students need access to learning as well. And really students, they have the tools, but we need access to information is facilitated by the educators. So helping students to learn the skills that they need to manage and utilize the information and ensure that they're able, that they have the, that they can get access to learning, which is really the ultimate goal. So this slide looks at how, this kind of represents what we are talking about today, which is the diagram shows the framework that the presentation is about technology as a sort of nested system of tools to be integrated into the learning environment to effectively educate diverse learners. So TEC is a technology enhanced classroom. So those technology enhanced learning environments integrate technology in the classroom to strengthen instruction, increase student engagement, and put the tools of technology in the hands of students. And then AT, assistive technology, and AAC, augmentative and alternative communications, are essential tools to enable students with disabilities to access general education and make progress on IEP goals and develop communication and life skills. So technology in the 21st century classroom, I think this past year, educators have realized the potential of technology to teach and learn and discovered the power of extensions to enhance learning. So this has really been a wonderful year to sort of have that experience to be able to recognize the opportunities that can be provided through technology for all students. So technology enhanced classroom prepares students for the 21st century computer knowledge and skills for the digital age. It's a feature of UDL and expands ways that students can engage and participate in general education. It's also a tool that enables effective learning online and learning, and I missed a word there, I don't know what word it was, but, and then integrated technology puts tools of technology in the hands of students, which we mentioned, It also creates accessible platforms for communication with students, families, and others, and it enables the pursuit of interests and directs their own learning, which is, and they can work at their own pace and customize their own schedules. And then there's these built-in options for extensions, minimize the need for adaptations of curriculum and instruction. So universal design for learning, there's a relationship with technology. For UDL is really, technology supports the features and principles of UDL to expand the ways that students can engage and participate in general education. So UDL is a framework for recognizing and removing barriers to learning and designing instruction for diverse students in culturally responsive ways. And the integration of the tools for all learners can support multiple means of representation, engagement, and expression for all learners. But the integration of technology also helps reduce stigmatization that can occur when students with disabilities need assistive technology to access curriculum, participate in general education settings, and communicate their most basic needs. So Rose, this one's for you.
Forgot to unmute. Hello. So I was going to talk a little bit about technology enhanced classrooms and a little bit from my perspective, especially working in Bellevue. So I think it's easy to get stuck in silos when you're in the general ed area. There's general ed silo, the special ed silo, the language learners silo. But really to achieve that true inclusion, we want to be able to interconnect and have interconnected and interdependent systems. So a few examples I wanted to give of some good things that I think represent that. One being co-teaching. I'm sure many of you are doing that or trying to do that in your districts, where gen ed and special ed teachers are planning together and teaching together. As an assistive technology team member, I have the privilege of being on a teaching and learning leadership team. So now I'm connected with the MLL team and the instructional technology specialists, lots of other groups there that help us plan. We do professional development together. Right now I'm teaching a multi-class UDL class, again, with a team of people from different departments so that we're trying to figure out how that all fits together. And then we're also in Bellevue, we probably have about 6 schools in the district that we're calling inclusion schools, meaning students in their surrounding areas are coming to their home schools and being served there, no matter what their ability level. So that's kind of forcing us to kind of help make sure we have something for every student at every school, and how can we integrate them and bring the services to them versus sending them out into a siloed service, right? So anyway, just a few examples. And then maybe we'll talk about next slide. And then here is a good example of how one device can serve multiple purposes. So in the general ed class, I know in Bellevue, like we have now iPads for all gen ed kindergarten and first graders. They might have educational apps on them. They do have built-in accessibility features. There's a lot of universal design built in to meet a variety of needs in that classroom. However, we also assign iPads to individual students who might need the features of that iPad as a specialized accommodation or modification. So for instance, we might give an iPad with a word prediction app to a student and an attached keyboard because they need that extra writing support, like we talked about in that example earlier. They struggle with handwriting. They need a little bit of speech to text or maybe word prediction help. And you can see a variety of other things that can be used as accommodations in the middle there. And then finally, sometimes it might be a dedicated device. And I think many of us are familiar with providing communication devices as a tablet, right, with a communication app. And in this case, it becomes essential that that student has that available to them at all times as technology that gives them access to that gen ed environment and to meeting their IEP goals. Then it really becomes true assistive technology where that student needs to have it across their day. And it's very specifically customized for them with special tools that they need. So we can layer that on. There might be a gen ed device out there, and maybe we layer on extra things, and it becomes assistive technology for a particular student. Okay, next. And then just to kind of review again, what is assistive technology and assistive technology service? And sometimes we think it has to be something very specialized that only an AT specialist or an occupational therapist can provide this, but really any device or piece of equipment, whether acquired commercially, off the shelf, modified or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capacities of individuals with disabilities. I see there's someone in our participant list that just did a recent book study with us at SETT for Chris Bouguet, and he'll tell you that it can be anyone on the team that suggests a supportive device for somebody, or a tech idea. It could be a tech librarian or instructional tech specialist. It could be a teacher or a para, or maybe it is an OT or an SLP. Where it becomes AT is when it's required for that specific student to have all the time, right, to have access. But anyone could try these tools, like as far as word prediction and speech to text, anyone can try that anytime. And it could be just their preference. It may not be required for an IEP. So kind of keeping in mind that definition. And one more. And then just, Rebecca had made this really nice chart, again, just kind of saying, when is it assistive technology and when is it not? And I think just keeping in mind that if it's specifically designed for a student with something like a communication device software, or specific supports they need for writing, assigned to that student, used throughout all their settings, specifically so they can access the gen ed, it is assistive technology. But if a student's in a classroom and everyone in there has an iPad with educational apps and they're doing math activities on their iPad with everyone else, maybe that isn't assistive technology for them. It's just gen ed tech enhanced environment. And same thing, another example, I know in Bellevue, we have a speech therapist who has created large core boards, vocabulary boards with the picture icons, and they're available now in some gen ed classrooms, and they're being used for whole classroom instruction or out in a playground with all the students. So even though there might be a student that needs that, and maybe they actually have it duplicated on their iPad or device for communication, it can be used as a whole class instructional method, and then it's not necessarily assistive technology. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Sarah.
So Rose touched a little bit about augmentative alternative communication, or what we call AAC. You might hear a lot. And you can see the definition here. But AAC may be used for augmenting a person's speech, or it could be an alternative to speech. There are many reasons somebody may use AAC, and it can take several forms as well. It might look like this iPad or tablet with a communication AAC app on it. It could look like a dedicated device a student has had purchased for them with eye gaze, or they may use switches to access a communication app or system. It can also look like a light tech system. So it could be a paper communication book. There are many ways it may look. There's a quote from the TIES Center, and this is a great resource to look at with inclusive practice tips. And in the section about communication, they talk about that using communication systems, students using these systems in the gen ed classrooms and in these inclusive environments is so special and important. And it's really one of the best ways to implement it, because there's so many opportunities for model use of AAC for a variety of communicative purposes. So it's very beneficial for students. Next slide, please. So for all these examples that we've talked about for assistive technology and AAC, we don't just come across it. We don't just come upon it and say, you get this, you get that. So we have a process. And it's important for the whole team to be part of this process, the teachers, the families, everyone comes together. And something we like to look at is called the SETT framework, and that stands for Student, Environment, Task, and Tools. What's really neat about this framework from Joy Zabala is that you're focusing on the student first. You're looking at these other things, and then tools are really that what you're looking at the end after you've considered all these different important factors. So if we think about AJ in our example, the 3rd grade example before, there's important things about him as a student, things that we don't know just from that little slide. But also it may be that he has some really important opinions. And so this process is something you can do with the student as well. And at any time throughout the IEP process, and should be revisited. But you're going to look at the student. What are the important things about this student, you know, besides parts of their disability, but what can they do and what are their interests? And then look at the environment. So some of those tools that people suggested, which were just really great, that maybe we say, that might be an option. Let's look at the environment and where would he use that? Maybe at home he's going to use this. Maybe in this class he needs a different tool, or that. What would that look like in different classes? And then what are the tasks? So we're looking at writing or reading or specific tasks inside of those. And then we get into the tools and talk about the specifics there. So this process, again, it can be done several times, and it's a really great decision-making service delivery tool for the whole team to look back at.
Thank you. And we're going to see an example of this in our Voices from Field partners. So our first, we have a video, and I think that
do you want me to introduce?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Linda Daly, and I work with the Special Education Technology Center. And this is Gracie Hodgson, who is the special ed director from the Liberty School District. And really this video is going to show the SETT process in action, because when we do a consultation, when the Special Ed Tech Center does that, we ask the whole entire team to come together, the gen ed, special ed staff, the parents, the students, if appropriate, if they're old enough, and we bring everybody together so we can be looking at all the different environments and what are the tasks that need to be done. And then just focusing on the student, everybody focusing on the student that way. And so what this video is Gracie responding to the question, what did you find was the benefit of the consultation process?
You know, the benefit of gathering the entire team to talk about assistive technology was twofold. The gen ed teachers got more of an understanding of the depth and the knowledge around these tools and how they could be applied to kids. This helped to change the perspective that these tools have the potential to help kids cheat. It was helpful to bring the team together to better understand what assistive technology tools are available. We gained cohesiveness between gen ed and special ed. Also, it was a great collaboration between the district and the parent. I think the parent felt supported and heard. Everybody had their place and we all heard the same thing. The sole focus was kept on how can this be used to have these boys access their education. As individuals, we don't all know everything about technology, but we all know how to ask a friend, dial a partner. In this case, the Special Ed Tech Center was the partner, and I want people to know how helpful this process was.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, the next, let's see, nope, you don't want that.
You know, the benefit of gathering.
There we go. All right, we have Rose.
Again, I wanted to introduce my friend Karanvir. I think previous slide. Right
Okay,
there. Yeah.
there
So
we are.
Karanvir, as you can see here, is a young 24-year-old young man who has cerebral palsy. And he's a really good example of somebody who needs and uses both assistive technology and augmentative and alternative communication. And he's used it in a big way. He now is able to use that to communicate with the world, and he does film editing, consulting, and speaking. He's done it for a lot of different groups and organizations, including the Special Ed Tech Center. And I featured here for your viewing pleasure at a later date a video webinar he just did in December called My AAC Journey from Switches to Eye Gaze to Infinity. So for this young man, there literally is no limits. He's always positive. He's got a great sense of humor, and he really does believe people with disabilities can do anything. And he's really passionate about helping other families and students with disabilities believe and achieve the same. So he's a real treat. If you've not heard of him before, I encourage you to go check out that as posted on his YouTube channel. And again, just a great example of someone who has thrived with assistive technology, and it's just made all the difference, not just in school, but in a career for himself. So that's Karanvir.
Thank you, Rose. And then you have another example here.
Yeah.
I'm going to introduce Molly.
So yes, in my Bellevue School District work, I've had the privilege of working with many teachers, and Molly Parker is a high school teacher who teaches special ed students, but she's done a really great job of learning how to put UDL in action at her high school. And she's been teaming with other 11th and 12th grade teachers to co-teach English classes. And she's going to tell you a little bit in this video about just some really practical strategies that she didn't just do herself, but as a team, they decided they were going to do this for all students. Gen Ed and special ed students would have these UDL choices. So let's hear from Molly.
Whoops.
And she is here with us today. So if you have questions, jot them down, and she's happy to answer later.
Hi, my name is Molly Parker, and I'm a special education teacher at Newport High School in the Bellevue School District. For about the past 5 years, I've been co-teaching American Literature and Composition, which is a general education English class. My role is to support students with IEPs in accessing their general education English classes. Over the years, my role has also kind of shifted to supporting all students in these classes. So what I'm going to be sharing here today is some strategies we used in the Great Gatsby unit for American Literature to support not only students with IEPs, but any students that were struggling to navigate Fitzgerald's text. So to provide some options with how students accessed the Great Gatsby and the storyline, all students were given the actual physical book. They picked this up from material pickup. They were also given a PDF version of the text, so they could choose right through their OneNote to have an audio version accessible. We also paired a YouTube video audio of each chapter in case students felt that the immersive reader was a bit too monotone. So each and every student in our co-taught and across junior English had access to audio versions of The Great Gatsby. Because our main focus this year with The Great Gatsby was on plot, we wanted to provide a lot of different options for supporting students in understanding the plot when Fitzgerald uses a lot of literary devices, which can sometimes make it tough for students with reading goals or MLL students to navigate what's actually going on with the plot. So to kind of provide more choice and supports, we passed out to all students a graphic novel version of the text. So students were able to actually pick up a physical copy, but I also used Office Lens to upload it online. So students that weren't able to get a physical copy had access to it on the computer as well. So what's really cool about this graphic novel is it actually takes specific quotes and language from The Great Gatsby and pairs it with pictures. So this has been a really cool strategy in supporting students in understanding the plot. For students that are either beginner MLLs or have reading goals in their IEP, we have a level down version that we gave to select students. And here you'll see that the reading level is pared down quite a bit. It's supported with also pictures. And so select students were also provided with this level down version. And what's cool is regardless of which version of the text students read, they were able to participate in the ongoing assessment of the unit, which was preparing literature circle notes, where they either form connections, discuss questions, or identify specific passages. So they were able to work through that written assignment and share with their classmates.
I just wanted to chime in with a few more additions. So you notice in Flipgrid, the reason we went out to Flipgrid and didn't embed that is because Flipgrid has a closed caption option where you can just click that and have closed captions built in when you're showing that to any audience. The other thing is you'll notice that some of the things Molly talked about could just be general kind of accommodations for a number of students or a preference, versus maybe if it was a leveled book version, then it may become a modification. So she has a range of choices for a variety of students that might prefer or need that support. Thanks, Molly.
Thank you. Okay, so Linda, let's see, next slide.
Rebecca,
Yes,
is Molly here with us today?
she is.
I had put in the chat, I'd love if Molly was willing to speak a little bit about how much planning goes into this to make sure that you have the materials ahead of time, and just to give us a little bit of a sense of what that collaboration looks like.
Should I chime in right now?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm very lucky, excuse me, with remote learning, it actually gave us tons of flexibility to meet with the whole junior English team. And so every time we plan throughout this year, it's been me, the special ed teacher. We've had our multi-language facilitator there as well, and every single teacher that teaches junior English. And what was really cool is I worked with the MLL facilitator to kind of explore different texts that we could order through the district. So the graphic novel we found, and then we essentially just proposed to our team, like, hey, what are your thoughts on us just giving this as a choice to everyone? And I would say that the transition to remote learning was such an amazing way to really help kind of implement some of these UDL strategies to everyone. So in past, it's kind of been limited to some of our students with like reading goals or they're struggling students, but now with remote learning and kind of everyone having different entry points and different experiences, the team was super open and using it across the entire junior English department. We have something similar in senior English, where we have 3 versions of the text that we're also pushing out to all senior English classes outside of co-taught. So but to your collaboration question, it's super important to get it across every classroom means you really need to help every teacher understand why we need to do this. And so I'm very lucky that I've been working with the team for the last 5 years. So there's been a lot of trust there. And thanks to remote learning, I think that a lot of educators started to see the need for us to really implement UDL and give some choice.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
And if others have questions, we have just one more example, one more or 2 more slides, and then we'll have some time to take questions. So let me see if I think I went out of full mode. So there we go. Okay, so Linda, you want to talk about Mead?
Sure. So this video is going to show you an example of read and write for Google, which assists students in accessing classwork. Now, it can be universally available and anybody can use it, but then it can also be an accommodation. But when a student needs it and has to have it to be able to access their classroom, it then becomes assistive technology. And it also needs to be documented either in the IEP or the 504 if that is needed for that student. And so I do want to thank Patty King, who is a teacher in the Mead School District, and Mary Binder, who is an AT specialist in the Mead School District, and they created this video for us. So
Thank you.
Yes.
Welcome to Technology in the Classroom. In this clip, we see our student utilizing read and write to have her assignment read to her. As she's reading, you will notice that she sees a word she does not understand. She quickly looks up the word utilizing the Read and Write's dictionary feature. Here you will see our student using Read and Write's dictionary feature to complete her vocabulary assignment. She is able to look up the meaning of words, and then she uses her voice typing feature to speak the word meaning and then copy and paste it into her assignment.
A young offender.
Here you see our student using Read and Write's text-to-speech feature. She highlights the section of text that she needs read to her, and Read and Write does the reading for her. Utilizing assistive technology tools like these has allowed this student and many others to be included in their general education setting more often with same age peers.
The teacher laughed at him.
Thank you. Excellent.
Welcome to Technology in the
Whoops.
Classroom.
Okay, we don't want that. We want the next slide. All right, Sarah, you want to talk a little bit about Everett?
Yes. Yes. So I asked my friends in Everett, Michelle Hofstad and Bernadette Wen, who are on the assistive technology team in Everett, and they are fantastic. I asked about what does inclusive technology look like in Everett, and they are going to talk a little bit about how they came to district-wide. They have a district-wide initiative in the use of technology and about collaboration at a district level. So Michelle and Bernadette, if you wouldn't mind touching on that.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks. In Everett, they used monies from a tech levy to fund both Chromebooks and Microsoft devices. So they're kind of unique in that students at the elementary and middle school level primarily use Chromebooks, and then by high school, they're also using Microsoft tablets. So this decision was based in part by a panel of students that had graduated, and they gave the feedback that it would be nice to be versed in more than one platform. So since the fall of 2020, they also have the platform Canvas. All students access their classrooms through Canvas, teacher web pages. And students have access to learning tools like speech to text, text to speech, responding using video or verbal responses, and other multimedia software. Students use high-tech and low-tech tools for communication, and Bernadette can speak to that.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. So of course, in the area of communication and AAC, our students with child-specific high-tech alternative and augmentative communication system or devices, they take those, of course, to the classroom. But in the last few years or couple years, just kind of trying to include everyone and not just having the student come with their device, but installation of and implementation of like durable low-tech communication boards. These are like big communication boards that are made with durable material, and Rose kind of touched upon big core boards being used in a general ed classroom, but it's been implemented in 4 elementary schools and having it installed in the playground. It starts in the playground to kind of reduce the barriers to communication in there and increase, social communication and creating and supporting social closeness and social inclusion for both, not just the student and the staff in the entire school. So it's started in the playground, and then in one school, it's also being implemented. The core board has now been, taken to other common areas within the schools, like the cafeteria, library, tech room, gym. And so it started with one school, and now it's been integrated in 4 schools. And the plan, at least kind of this year, is to have that kind of push it to more schools. And hopefully we can have a common core board. And then, of course, we have the core board doesn't just have those high frequency words that we use, in conversation, but also like specific. Each school can have their specific customized words, like for instance, in the playground, like specific words that's special to that setting. So, so that's kind of a nice thing that we've noticed kind of being implemented, and everyone is, the teachers and everyone is on board with that. So.
Thank you so much. We actually have some question time, and I wasn't sure how much time we would have. But of course we are tight on time. So we had 2 options here. We're going to go with option 1, which is sort of a 2-minute silent reflection and looking at question 3, questions for voices from the field or from presenters today that you might have, that you would like a few minutes of our time to ask. So let's just take, we might even have some in the chat, but let's just take a minute and think about that. Okay, so I see a couple of questions in the chat. One is that what is the most impactful AT that you have used looking for more ideas and tools that may not know? Let's see, I can't follow that. Where did that go? That may not know of currently. Some of the most impactful tools.
Rebecca, I could attempt, there's one right before that too that asks about explicit examples of assistive technology for dysgraphia, dyscalculia.
Yeah, good.
Visual processing and ADHD. So I just wanted to point out, I put a link in last March when COVID started. SETT created a website really trying to gear towards parents, families, students, and educators. But we tried to make it really simple and easy to follow. And we have categories here to look at accessibility tools. We have a communication section, reading, so reading, writing, and math. We have Linda on the call, who's a math specialist as well, and she has populated that math section. So we talk about specific AT, and we put in videos and links as a resource. We're also happy to do consultations with teams, school teams, regarding specific ideas for students. So that's just a great starting point. And then more of those recommendations kind of depend right on the situation. So that's one of our services for SETT, and we're happy to follow up with you more on that.
Thank you. So other questions? Anybody want to speak out? Well, I do want to share, we've got some, if you have follow-up questions, you can contact one of the presenters or one of the panelists. So their contact information is here. We also have some tips for AT and COVID, some resources and suggestions. And then this is the site for SETT, where you can actually go and request technical assistance, but you can also look at, they have a lot of examples of tools that you can find that you might not know about. This is a slide around digital citizenship. So really, when students are working with technology, there's a responsibility to care for the equipment, to practice good etiquette, to use critical thinking skills and good judgment when using the internet, and avoid internet scams and cyberbullying. So educators need plans in place to try to manage that when students, and to use the tools responsibly and ethically. So using, the digital commerce, there's might not be all of these appropriate for depending on your grade, but I did put a link in here, and they do, you can get like posters for your classroom or handouts, things that you might want to share and use and integrate into your curriculum about being respectful online with people who have different beliefs than you, using technology to make your voice heard, even around public debates, and then and determining the validity of online sources. So some of those could really be important for older students, especially. These are some resources for you. The ISD is a great resource for learning more about technology tools and how they're implemented in schools. There's a couple of great articles, and the sites is the CAST website that focuses on technology. So this is a website, an article, and then there's an activity here that, yes.
Okay, Rebecca, I could answer Seema's question.
Okay.
She asked for anyone who can answer for a special ed evaluation. Can you clarify when we should be marking AT evaluation on the consent form, and maybe clarify that the whole team usually looks at AT as a whole, not just SLP or OT? We've been teasing that out in my district right now, and I'm actually making a presentation on that. And the answer is you can ask for, anyone can ask for an AT evaluation or AT consideration with the IEP. But generally, keeping in mind, it's the school team, it's the evaluation team, or it's the IEP team that's considering the assistive technology options as part of their evaluation. So if there's an OT on the eval team, they might be considering assistive technology support writing. If it's their teacher, maybe they're looking at reading options, or if it's an SLP, maybe communication options. If the team doesn't have enough expertise, that's when they might go to either the assistive technology specialist in their district, or they could come to SETT and ask for more support and consultation. So it always starts with the AT evaluation team, or the school evaluation team, or the school IEP team. And then more expertise can be asked for to support them in a consultative mode. Does that help?
And Rebecca, Brian had his hand raised. I'm wondering if he maybe has a question.
I didn't see that. Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was allowed to talk or not because I know it was being recorded. So my question was like how, I just saw in the chat that Rose mentioned that you guys are bringing in somebody who uses assistive technology. But I mean, that's the thing too, is like really talking with people with different disabilities and like figuring out what technologies they're using and which ones they're not. I mean, like for myself, I have a disability, and there are certain technologies I used in the past, but I don't use them anymore. But then as I've changed jobs, I've gotten access to other technologies that work better than other technologies. So I thought that was something to kind of address what's the most impactful assistive technology, is really talking with the individuals themselves and seeing what they find to be impactful.
Right, including student voice is really important.
Really good point, especially at secondary, right? Because the students, if they don't buy into it, doesn't matter what we suggest, we need to go to them. What devices do they prefer to use? What tools are they interested in? It's a great point. I know there was another, Juliet had said she had a question or a comment. Juliet, did you want to unmic?
Yeah, what I'm looking for is, I do know that we have the Common Core State Standards for technology, and it came out about 2 years ago. There are still teachers, though, that do not even know that we have the Common Core State Standards for technology. So how is OSPI getting that information out to all teachers and all school districts so that they will be following that and teaching them in their technology classes?
That's a great question, and I will say I'm sure SETT has some plans for that. The link is here, but we also are putting out a handbook, an inclusionary practices handbook that has that in it. But this link here takes you to the technology standards and these are the ISD standards. So that's a great question, and I think that anybody, Rose or Sarah, do you have any ideas about where that's going to happen through SETT?
Yeah, so one of the speakers, that same book study I did recently with Chris Bouguet, he bases all his stuff starting with the ISD standards and then talking about UDL and then assistive technology. So kind of looking at, you remember the circular graph that Rebecca had shown us, that the gen ed tech ISD standards, everyone should know about those, including special ed teachers. Sometimes they think that's only for gen ed, but it's for everybody. And we want all our students to be achieving those ed tech standards. Some may need more extra support than others. Mm-hmm. And another just tip, we're going to do another book study next year. Chris Bouguet has a brand new book coming out in May called Inclusive 365. And we will be digging into that next year. And again, he's one that really helps bridge the ISD standards, across those silos we talked about earlier. So stay tuned for that.
We have 1 minute and we have one more slide, and this is just a technology creed, things that in order to implement technology in the classroom and to include students with disabilities using technology, there are just some things that we might want to, that can help facilitate that, belief that technology, that there are many ways to do things, many ways to learn and engage and show what you know. To believe that assistive technology can provide access to high quality instruction, high quality learning, high quality curriculum and materials, that collaboratively we can develop AT plans, monitor use and problem solve, and that student participation in academics is possible with AT or technology, that students can communicate. We can support them with their communication and communicative competence and maintain consistency across environments through collaboration between educators, support ongoing assessment, use of tools, and the effect on learning outcomes, and support use of AT in and out of school and home use of systems and devices, but also to implement principles of UDL. We have 2 more inclusive IEP educators, IEPs for our New World webinars coming up April 8th, related to WAC changes, and then May 13th, identifying and serving students with disabilities that are English language learners. Tanya, did you want to say anything else about that?
No, we're good. We just really appreciate everyone joining us.
Thank you so much.